Hello, I'm Dr. Sharon Marshall, and today I'll be talking to you about the Aeneid. Dido is very much a tragic heroine. It's divinity that very much drives her story. She should have known that Aeneas' fate lied outside of Carthage. Before they go on the hunt, there is a striking moment of hesitation where Dido she changes from city builder into a tragic heroine. It describes that Dido cannot escape the tragic fate that lies before her. We have admiration for her in the fact she is turning from city builder to victim of the imperial machine, yet it remains true that Dido poses serious threats to the foundation of Rome. The Battle of Actium is set up as a battle between Egypt and Rome, and this is a clear piece of propaganda. So that segment was, a bit about Dido, a bit about Book 4, and now I shall turn to talk about Book 8 and the Shield of Aeneas. The four virtues of Augustus: bravery, clementia, piety, and justice. In the Shield of Aeneas, a depiction of Metus and his punishment. It's a terrible punishment, and it is not a good example of good, honest, and fair justice. But what is left unsaid? What is left unsaid on the shield is more important than what is actually said. The admission of fratricide between the two brothers is flown into stark contrast with the rape of the Sabine women. The depiction of war in the middle of the shield demonstrates the inevitable outcome of Roman propensity to turn against herself. Aeneas is a very unlikely hero who actually poses a threat to Virgil. He insists that the poem is not about the greatness or anything about Aeneas, but about the founding of Rome. Aeneas is merely an agent of fate, a public servant. Aeneas plays a very passive role in the Aeneid. He does things, he acts on his fate, even if they go against his self-interest, and it will only stop when his self-interest and fate coincide. Augustus, like Aeneas, paints himself out as a very reluctant leader, not drawn out by personal desires, but by an act of duty, which demonstrates that the poem is about the founding of Rome rather than the greatness of Aeneas. Book 6 is a turning point in the Aeneid. It's where Aeneas leaves his old furor behind and starts following the ideas of mercy. When entering the underworld, Aeneas sees all the people he has lost, and it reminds us of the human cost of founding Rome. Anthony Boyle has a very anti-Augustan reading of Book 6. He argues that because the Sibyl hurries him along and he never gets to spend much time looking at all the suffering and all that thing, he doesn't learn anything. He comes out of the underworld not learning anything. Brooks Otis has an anti-Augustan reading of Book 6. He argues that because the Sibyl turns him away, hurries him along in the underworld, he comes out not having known anything. In Books 7 to 12 of the Aeneid, he's just destined to relive the horrors of his past. In the underworld, Aeneas leaves through the gate of ivory. The ideas of false dreams, which shows that the ideals of empire outlined by Anchises are a false hope, and they won't be realised by either Aeneas or Augustus. Adam Perry says there are two voices in the Aeneid, one of public celebration and one of lament. It is of my view that we can't view Book 6 as a straightforward celebration of empire, for the catalogue of heroes ends on a note of tragedy with the death of young Marcellus. It's another example in the Aeneid of mortes immature, premature death. Virgil ends the parade of heroes as the greatness that might have been. Hello, my name is Richard Jenkins, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Aeneid. Dido and Aeneid is a self-contained tragedy. In the Aeneid, Virgil shares parallels with Andromache of Apollonius in Rhodes, a tragedy that should not have been. Virgil invites us to share the emotion and sympathy with the lovers. Virgil puts Augustus into the Aeneid not to talk about his life, but to put him in connection with acts of rule that are so present throughout the Aeneid. Sort of Virgil chooses, the things he finds most important about Augustus, from his sort of conquering of foreign lands to the restoration of peace and order. Aeneas has the unique burden of destiny imposed upon him. In the second half of the poem, we just see it moving inevitably towards victory, whereas Aeneas turns into a sort of a primitive, red-blooded figure who sort of has strong emotions. The very last act in the Aeneid is an act of compassion. Aeneas's fault is not that he feels too little, but that he feels too much. Aeneas isn't a Roman hero. He will never be. In the underworld, Anchises sort of simply forgets about him in the parade of heroes. And Aeneas, rather than being a Trojan in Roman fancy dress, he is an independent man.